So, welcome everybody to the Creative Feast on May 5th, 2019. And this is our first ever episode of the Creative Feast. Don't sound so excited.
I was trying to not be too loud on the mic. I would have screamed really loud, but it would have peaked.
It was like ambient.
Yeah, background. I'll add in a nice loud cheer.
Perfect. Great. So me and Joel are here. Me being Caitlin.
Yeah, I was going to say, who are you?
I am Caitlin.
Caitlin Adair.
Adair.
Joel
Thompson.
We
know our names. Congratulations. We're going. This is great.
First episode won't be awkward at all.
First episode. And we are here with the lovely Anthony Bryan.
Hi. I'm glad. Thank you for asking me to be on this. I'm actually quite excited.
Yeah, we're so excited.
Yeah.
So a little bit of background about Anthony, I guess.
Yeah, please.
So the intention of this podcast is to focus on creatives that are doing cool shit in New Brunswick. And Anthony was the first person I thought of to ask because he's literally my favorite. I don't think I've ever met such a blissful human that everybody consistently loves in my entire life.
Is this interview just going to be like hugs afterwards? Like
Basically.
everybody's
just a silent, you don't hear anything, just us hugging.
When I quit halfway through, I'll start insulting you.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, Anthony, do you want to tell us a little bit about your creative background?
Yeah. I mean, how deep do you want to go? Like
all the way.
Oh my God. I don't know. I sort of started out writing my assemblies at the high school I went to in Trinidad, and then that sort of spiraled into me wanting to write more plays and more screenplays and stuff like that. I wrote the Christmas play for my high school, and then they brought in this lady who her name was Carrie Hickman. She apparently worked on like the Harry Potter films. She worked on like films in like England and like London and stuff.
Very cool.
And she came to like supervise and help me direct it, and she like showed me the rules of script writing. And then I went to university. I went to STU. I did creative writing there. As soon as I got there, I was like, okay, I need to put something in the black box. Like that was my dream. In my 4 years here, something that I write has to be in the black box.
And that's their theater there, right?
Yeah. So that's the black box theater there, and I got something in my 4th year. I did a play for this event called What's Next. It was called I Love This City. And then roughly around there, I also started doing stand-up comedy. And I also did a couple pieces for the St. Thomas Early English Drama Society, so Steeds. So what we did was we did adaptations of like Shakespeare plays, but we like tried to modernize them a little bit. So I did like Midsummer Night's Dream, but set in like the 70s.
Interesting.
And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Used a lot of unlicensed music. It was but it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of good friends that I have today, that I work with today. And now I'm just running the Wilson's Room, so I do stand up a lot, and
That sounds pretty rad.
Yeah.
I wasn't living in New Brunswick at the time that your play was put up, but I've read it. And you have like such a distinctive voice as a writer.
Thank you.
Like
that's really
it's like nothing I've really ever seen before. Like, can you tell us a little bit about how you see your voice as a writer and how you
Yeah. I kind of say there's like a Frankenstein's monster of like everything I sort of liked like growing up. I don't know. I like the energy of like cartoons. So I try to fit a Saturday morning cartoon element into everything I write. It's very rare that you'll read something I write and it's set exactly in the real world. Like characters still kind of speak like they're in a cartoon. Like I would wake up and I'd watch like Ren and Stimpy, SpongeBob, and then I'd watch like Jackie Chan Adventures and all those things. So it's like a stitched together version of that. But then there's also like the things I would watch in the evening. So I'd watch like Buffy and Twin Peaks and all these super weird shows that like kind of like crawled out of the 2000s. But then I also wanted to, I don't know, my voice changed a lot between Trinidad and here. In Trinidad, I used to really write about like dudes. It was me and my friends usually. When I came here, there were different issues, there were different things going on, things that I wanted to learn about. Like, there were lots of like, had a lot of friends who were part of like the LGBTQ community, and you would hear them talk about how, oh, they never got a chance to do this and do that. And I don't know, it was one of those things where I was like, well, I'm not too sure. I don't quite understand. So it was a way for me to learn about the community as well. I would ask questions, I would talk to people in the community, and I'd be like, what's going on? Does this work? And I'd write characters, and I'd never like focus on a story that dealt with an issue I don't know about, like coming out. But I do like featuring like female characters. I do like featuring like LGBTQ characters. But I also like introducing like elements of surrealism. I do like elements of animation transitioning to live action. So characters talk very quickly. They always have like almost like a catchphrase or like just very snappy sort of dialogue. So I like that. I like characters just doing that back and forth. I would focus on that more than plot. Honestly, I'm all about that. Yeah,
That's cool. Yeah. I like the influence from Twin Peaks and what was like SpongeBob. And finding the middle ground between those two.
And you would be surprised at how much those two don't have in common, like at all. But then, like it's just trying to find something that actually makes them work, and like really wanting to have these like animated characters, but in a very dark sort of setting. Like I do like dark comedies. I do like threats being kind of comedic. I do like danger being funny.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's funny because like I said, you have such a distinctive voice, but now I'll forever think of it as SpongeBob and Twin Peaks.
Does that like ruin it now?
No, it just totally summarizes it, because when I talk about you, which I do often because I like you.
Oh.
I know.
This is the best podcast in the world.
Yeah.
I'm being so vulnerable right now. I don't normally like people or acknowledge.
so
As soon as you heard your voice on the mic, you've changed.
I've changed.
Yeah.
I'm a totally different person.
You are now
behind
radio
the
host
mic.
Caitlin.
I am radio
It's just
host
nice
Caitlin.
to everybody.
I have to be. It's my job, right? They
This is
can't
being
be like,
recorded, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. I'm nice. There
No
goes
one will
my
hear
first
it.
thought.
That's good.
I'll overdub your stuff you're saying into mean things.
Perfect. Please do, like, just shady.
Yeah, it'll be like a
shady.
supercut of Caitlin just saying the worst things. about
Right,
me.
and it'll be really confusing because you'll keep saying like, "Thank you, that's so kind." You'll be like,
Yeah.
"What?"
What?
Yeah, I'm just a what do you call it? Like a floor mat, like a doormat. Like you
Exactly.
just walk over me.
Garbage. Just garbage human. There you go. You have something now.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, so I do talk about you often because as an artist and a creative, I find you very inspiring because you have this like deep authenticity in that voice, but it's also really like endearing and strange and weird, and it's like
you.
I can't like. Yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes when people ask you to read their stuff, you're like, yeah, sure, I'll read it. And, you don't like dive right into it and like, oh my gosh, I need to see this. Like, you're so cool. Whereas like anything I've seen you do or read, I'm like, dude, like,
Thank you.
I need that in my life.
Thank you a lot. No, I love your stuff too. I think you're awesome. You do some.
Love session. Joel's like, I'm
good,
so
though.
uncomfortable.
If we're not spreading the love, then
Yeah.
we're doing something wrong. So
Yeah.
You go into this like cartoon energy, but then you talk about like coffee enemas.
Periods.
right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's it, right? Like you just put a different energy into a thing that people usually talk about, but people don't usually talk about it that way. And it's fun. It's a subversive sort of way. And even though you might not be like, oh, it's the most revolutionary thing in the world, it still feels refreshing.
Sweet.
So like, yeah.
I'm not a revolutionary.
It's funny that you describe your style of writing as kind of like the SpongeBob Twin Peaks, because I see Caitlin as kind of a little bit. Yeah, she's kind of like that because you are a little cartoony,
I
but you
kind of
also
am,
have
yeah.
like
Yeah.
the seriousness and
Yeah,
so.
that's true. I'm
No
like,
wonder you
oh,
guys
let's tackle
vibe,
social
right?
justice and like make a cat kill people.
Yeah,
So that's,
exactly.
That's normal.
That's
things
cartoony,
to
right?
do.
Yeah. I don't know, like these days, like people, we're so cynical, right? Like we grew up with so many things, and like cartoons and like the media that we have now is so cynical and aimed at like not only like supporting these things that we used to love when we grew up, but also kind of making fun of it and sort of introducing darker elements to it. And usually like you'll see a post and somebody be like, "Oh, Adventure Time. I thought this was for kids," and you'll see the show actually exploring these darker themes. But I mean, cartoons used to do that all the time, and shows used to do that all the time. And I think now is a very good time to start doing it more in people's face.
Yes.
Because we want to see that. We want to see things that we usually see spoken about in a different way with like a different kind of energy, and that's fun. That's a lot of fun to watch. Yeah.
It's like something that artists can do. It's kind of like use the lens that they see things through to kind of like take whether it's politics or whatever thing that's going around and put it in a new light or show it in a way that people can view it differently or think about it differently.
Exactly.
I think that's something that, do you find as an artist that's important to your process? Like,
oh yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know. You watch something like I don't know, one of my favorite comedy specials. I watch it like every time before I do a set like that I'm scared about. Like if I'm doing a show that I'm honestly terrified for, and like I'm always nervous before a show. But there's certain shows, if it's like a room I've never been to or a crowd I've never seen, I freak out. It's like the first time I do it, and I watch Bo Burnham's Make Happy, and he talks about so many things you've heard comedians talk about before. Like he talks about depression, he talks about whether or not he has any relevance in the world. He talks about all these things, but he does it with music. You know, he talks about being a white man, and a lot of comedians are getting bored of white men talking about being white men. But he just does it as a song, and it's immediately much better than 90% of white men talking about white men comedy, right? Like, like it's just like I'm not saying don't do that,
right?
But he just found not even like a completely revolutionary way to do it, but just a refreshing way,
like
right?
slightly different, yeah.
Like
his
Straight
own voice.
White Man's a bop, right? Like it's such a good song, and if you haven't heard it, go listen to it now, right? Like it's great.
Yeah, and there's so much creativity to that type of performance, and I think like stand-up comedy, it often doesn't get looked at like a form of like art and creativity.
No.
And it's like, well, telling jokes, it's like it stood the test of time. Stood the test of time.
Stand up and
Stand up and tell it.
The test of time.
But I think that people sometimes, like audiences, don't necessarily look at us like we're performers, and like we have this like deep creativity, and so yeah, it's kind of interesting, and that's a different way. It's like, how are we approaching these same stories? Because basically, you can only tell what you know, which is limited for
definitely better to tell what you know too, and not try to step out too much and go to an area that you have no clue about what you're talking about. I think that people would probably read that maybe, or pick up on it.
Yeah, like I wouldn't want to write a story about coming out. I wouldn't want to write about a story like even though I have a female protagonist in my plays, it's more about the fact that being in Trinidad, like that whole aspect of like not knowing if you'll ever be in a play or being in a show, or never knowing if somebody will write a play for you or about you or with you. And it's fun to do, and I have so many friends. I have a lot more friends who are identify as female and are performers. And you write these scripts and then you just see them in it, right? So I'll never want to tell their stories, but I want them to be in mine. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Like, it's
a
more
good way
about
of putting
that,
it.
right? Like,
that's amazing.
Like I'm not gonna be here and I'm gonna be like,
Very
hey
cool.
everybody, I'm here to save you. That's not even what I want to do. It's like you write a script now. Like I write a script now, and I can't not write it without thinking about, like, I don't know. Like I love this city. The main character Sonny is like this hodgepodge of so many people I know, and a lot of them, like in the original draft of the script, Sonny was presented as a female, and then we changed it to a trans male because Madigan played the role. But so much of like who Sonny was is made up of like personalities of people I knew, and when I put the audition out, I was like, this person would be great for it. So I would be like messaging my friends, and I was like, please audition, please audition, and Madigan got it, and then when Madigan got the role, I was like, I have to rewrite the role, like because Madigan encompasses a lot of other things, so I had to put things that Madigan did into the character as well. So
that's cool.
Well,
fun. It's kind of like an interesting mix of your creative voice and then taking also pieces of reality and people around you. And I think, I don't know, I don't do as much of like I don't do any stand-up comedy, so I want to say too that like I very much admire like people who can do that, and I think people need to see it as an art form because it definitely, and it's so performance based. I think people think funny people can just get up and be funny.
Yeah.
And I know I'm sidetracking here a little bit.
That's good.
Because I can be funny in person, but I cannot be funny like doing stand-up, at least not yet. I want to maybe try it someday.
Yeah.
But that's a huge skill set. But anyway, I totally went off topic there, but I was talking about the bringing people that you know and experiences that you've witnessed kind of into your creativity and adding that to your voice as well. Like that's I think a huge part of what creatives can do.
Yeah, no, it definitely keeps you, I guess, sort of fresh, right? Like I'm not just writing these stories I know, because eventually that's gonna run out, right? Like eventually I'm gonna, so why not just try to do something else? You know?
Yeah.
And try to make it a little bit refreshing.
Yeah, and I think if artists aren't kind of taking risks or stepping outside their comfort zone, then we're almost like doing ourselves a disservice to not try something that might be scary to try or might fail.
Yeah.
Or might be looked at like, what is this person doing? But I think that's part of finding a voice and finding what stories need to be told.
No, exactly. And I mean, if you don't take risks, like everything you write is just gonna be like a light version of the last thing you write, right? Like, I don't want to write "I love this city" light. I mean, maybe as like a little breather or something like that. But if I'm writing "I love this city" light, I better be taking a risk for the next thing that I'm doing. Right.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
When I went to acting school, we had this like one incredible teacher. Her name was Carmen Arguire. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. That would suck if it's not. And she's a writer and an actor, and she's done so much stuff. And she used to like make us do like really challenging things, like from a place of fear. Like so for me, like I'm so stuck up. Like I just really am. Like there's not really a better way. Like I'm just a stuck up person. Like I don't know.
Just don't agree. Like just let it.
Just just don't agree.
No, Caitlin.
But I have a hard time like just letting loose and being fun and being weird, and especially like it's coming more as I'm growing, as I'm writing, as I'm creating. But 10 years ago I was more stuck up than I am now, and she made me sing and dance to a Lady Gaga song like by myself in front of the entire class of like men. It was like I think there was only 2, maybe 3 women in my class and like 20 boys. Okay. And I also find male energy very challenging as a whole, and so she would like offer these like really insane challenges that seem like really easy to some people. Like some people are like, singing and dancing to Lady Gaga, that's easy. To me, that was like, there's no way I'm doing that. Yeah. Like,
I would be
no way. Yeah. If I can't do something perfectly, I do not want to do it, and I cannot sing and dance perfectly. And so I did it, and I was crying afterwards because I had like fallen. I tripped over something and I fell on my face, and I was so embarrassed. I was crying, and after that, she was just like, "Did you die?" And I was like, no, I guess I didn't. And she's like, nothing creative will ever kill you. Like, did you die? I was like, oh.
It's kind of going like worst case scenario. Like they do that in counseling. It's like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then you face it. Yeah. And then you're on the other side of it, and you kind of say, okay, maybe I could grow from this. Maybe this is something that could, instead of like, so did you die? It's kind of like worst case scenario. Did it kill you? No.
Yeah. No. So now I approach like stand up or acting or writing, and it's like, what's the worst that could happen? Somebody gets in and they're like, this
somebody
is
just
garbage.
doesn't like it.
Right.
Yeah. Right? Like it's a little bit different than doing something like offensively bad, right? Like if you did something that offended somebody. Yeah. And that's different, right? You were dancing to Lady Gaga, right? If somebody got upset about that, they'll probably got upset about a lot of things.
That's also part of my stuck-upness. Like I've spent so much time doing particular kinds of work that I almost like live in like a box, because I'm like I just don't want to ever I think
we're all like that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
We have our comfort zone that we
totally. But I feel like in Fredericton it's kind of a different ballgame, because when we're putting out art, it's like there's not a whole lot of like constructive criticism that happens
Yeah.
in this community that I find personally. Usually it's like, you know, you go to play and everybody's like, that was so good. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, Or, you know, I'll see a movie or I'll send people like my work and I'm like, I genuinely want to grow from this. Like, please tell me how to fix it. You know, and there's like a select few people that I know you can trust, but I'm starting to see a shift in that, like on social media, particularly in this community. Like there's more of that constructive criticism going on, as opposed to like, especially as Maritimers, I think we kind of have this identity of being like really friendly and you know outgoing that doesn't lend itself much to that kind of critique in order to grow.
Right, that's what for growth you need that.
Yeah.
And I think people also get in this mindset where like whenever somebody puts themselves out there, they think, well, I wasn't there, so I might as well just celebrate this person, like, or this person's my friend, I don't want them to not like me, or I do like this unconditionally.
Yeah.
Like it happens, right? I saw us play Black Dog versus the World, or Black Dog versus 4. I don't know. I don't remember the title. It was like a UNB play. It was written by like a creative writing student here. I hated it. I despised it. And I got out the play. It was an exhausting play. I honestly, like, I got out and I saw one of the lead actors and he was in front of the door. So like no matter what I did, I would have to face him.
Yeah.
And I went up to him and I had to like get around him and he was like, "Oh, hey Anthony, what's up?" And I said, "Hey buddy, you're in Newsies, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then I was like, "Cool, I'll see you there." And I just walked past him. And then I saw them on campus and he asked me what I thought. So I was like, I can't lie. I can't. And I just told him I hated it and
Nice.
I did. I had to.
This was such a nice, loving podcast.
There's all these
Tough
things
love
that
is
I found.
part of love, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, but of course I don't blame you. You didn't write it. Like,
Right,
you did your best. You went up there and you acted and you did what you had to do and there's only so much you can do with a bad script, you know what I mean? Like, and you could see a great actor pushing against a bad script, right? Like, there's almost like a force like against them, and you're like, oh, that sucks, and it kind of hurts a little bit, but you're like, you could tell that they're giving it their all. And I don't know, my degree is in creative writing, and I would say 90% of that is critiquing other people's things, right? Like, like you get into a circle and you all contribute work for the week and you do a round table discussion of what you liked and what you didn't like about it. And you had to form that in a way that was not only respectful but fair. And you as the artist had to remain silent during this entire period. And only after all the critiques had passed, you got a chance to like fight your case. And that is, I think, the scariest part of being an artist. Like having to just sit there and just listen to people just sink their teeth in the just tear it apart. And I remember, oh my God, I remember writing something once in class, and this girl was like, it has too much swearing in it. And I couldn't say anything. She was like, oh, my parents can't see it. My little sister can't see it. These people can't see it. And I couldn't say anything, but then somebody else backed me up. Like somebody else was like, oh, well, not every play you can take everyone. Your kids to see.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, and that was fine. And then at that point you kind of realize that there are people who will have your back. Like, and the person who defended me didn't love my thing, right? Like, she still had issues with it. But if your play stands on, its own, like, if it stands, like, people will defend it.
Yeah,
and
true.
all those criticisms are being listened to, and and I think what I'm trying to do with my group of friends, so it's like Thomas McDougall, Liam Brown, my partner Naomi, Brianna Parker, and there's like a couple other writers, and we meet on Mondays and Fridays, and basically what we do is it's called Interstage Write, and it started as this writing group that we would eventually put on like script readings, but now what we do is we do round table creative writing groups for basically somebody will post something in the group and we'll be like, okay, read this for Friday, and we all critique it, and basically that play is going to be submitted for some event like Notable or Fringe Festival or some competition we found online, and we just go around and we tear it apart. And we have to be fair, you have to be nice, and but you have to be respectful for this person's work, but you also have to be honest. Nobody benefits from you just saying you liked something. Like, if you just like something unconditionally, I don't think you're not going to get any better. You know what I mean? And nothing's perfect. There's flaws with everything. There's always going to be flaws. And I'm not saying, like, try to find flaws, right? Like, if you like it, just say you like it, right? And then try to expand on some notes there. But I do think there is so much benefit to somebody actually hearing constructive feedback. But some people are scared of that. And some people never had to face that.
Yes.
Right? Some people are used to just hearing how good something is. Or,
That's good advice, though, for New Brunswickers, I think. And not just New Brunswickers, but we do tend to, we're a small community. Actually, I saw someone was talking recently about, like, whether there should be criticism of, like, New Brunswick, specifically in the film community, and kind of saying, like, is there a place for that, or is it too small of a community? I think that's a good way to tackle it. It's like, you can be honest, you can be nice, you can combine it all, but still not just give someone that unconditional, I liked it.
A review is a piece of art too, right? Like, if comedy is a piece of art, like reviewing, there's a structure to it, there's rules to it. I don't know, there was a play this weekend, Swipers, that came out. Hated that too. I did not like it. I'm not gonna pretend. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I did not like it. I didn't like the story. I found it a very aggressive sort of play, and of course I'll get more into that if you want. Like, you could just. But my friend posted a review. Mackenzie Curry, she was also part of this group. She posted a review online, and it was odd how people reacted. Like, I remember there was a comment and somebody was like, "Oh, this is one person's opinion," and I'm like, well, yeah.
That's exactly
Captain
what
Obvious.
this is.
That's how reviews work, right? And it was almost like people were.
That's so funny.
And I get that. I get that they were probably upset because they worked hard on this and whatever. But I'm like, that doesn't mean it's free from criticism, right? Like,
Like, you can work hard and still receive some kind of feedback. Like,
it's not like she was just being like, this was the worst thing I've ever seen.
Right.
Don't go see these people in anything again. She wasn't trying to spread hate, but she felt like she needed to be honest about this. She didn't want to have to tell her friends I liked it when she didn't. She didn't want to have to lie to herself, to lie to her friends. And that's a brave thing to do.
Yeah, it is brave, yeah.
And I was kind of mad that the community kind of kicked back a little bit. It was a bit unfortunate. And of course there's people who are supporting it too, right? Like, in that same breath, there's so many people who are sharing this, and a lot of artists who are like listening to and want to listen. There's people on the show who want to listen to, and I like that. I love that is happening, but it needs to happen more. And faster and more often.
And I think the thing with that is, I didn't see the play, but I did see the post, and it was just so well written. Like, it gave so much feedback from this really, like, I thought it was like a super respectful way that I was like, yeah, like, can I send you all my shit, please? To review? Because I thought
maybe that would be a good way of encouraging someone who did do a thoughtful review.
Exactly.
Be like, hey, I like how you put the thought into that. Can you review something of mine?
To
kind of show the mutual respect between, and that's like the artist and the reviewer. Can that be a thing?
You're
so
both
cool.
respecting the fact that you both do work. Like, Mackenzie at no point disrespected Kerensky Nowlin's work, and Kerensky Nowlin, who wrote the play, hasn't reacted this way. Like, he's been pretty respectful to this criticism, and I do give him a lot of credit for that.
For sure, yeah.
Like, kudos to you, man. Like,
because it is hard. It is hard. It can be hard to take criticism, right? Yeah. So from both perspectives. But I think, as a person or an artist, and I think like all people are somewhere in their soul an artist, but you can't grow. You really can't grow. If you do really want to grow, you need to listen to objective views on things you do, because otherwise, like you were saying, like you can just live in this bubble, and who wants to live in a bubble? Like I mean, maybe there are people out there, but I would rather interact with other people and build together some thing that makes sense to all of us, versus I build something that only makes sense to me, and if someone questions it, I tell them to go whatever. Like we talked about swearing before, and I was gonna swear, and then I ended up just saying, "Just go."
Just get
That's my new insult. Just go, man.
That's so funny.
And I mean, of course, that like this isn't me encouraging like people just walking up to you on the street and being like, "Hey, here's."
No.
There's a line, right?
Not welcome. Thoughtful, beautiful, written reviews.
Because you're not taking it as an art form there. You're just letting me know what's on your mind. And I'm like, at that point, it's just unsolicited, right?
Unsolicited, completely,
Comedians do that. That's a
Comedians do that so hard.
A comedian came up to me and was like, "Oh, I like your stuff. Stop leaning so much into the race stuff. Stop talking about race." And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't tell you to stop, making Trump impressions, right? Like, like it's part of who I am. I'm not gonna stop doing it because you don't want to hear it. Yeah, but also that's not a criticism, right? Like you just told me not to do something. Yeah. If you were like work on it, like work on these things, you can't rewrite my set, right? Like at no point in Mackenzie's review did she say, "Here's what I would do," because that's not the same thing as critiquing.
You're right.
Yeah, you're not rewriting anybody's stuff.
Yeah. So I got a question.
Yeah, sure.
Out of all of the things that you've done creatively, what's kind of the one that you feel you can express yourself the most in?
Ooh.
Or is it all of them?
That's a tough one. That's tough. I don't know. That's hard. I like. That's hard. I don't know, cause I wanna go with stand-up comedy. I do, cause I'm there and I'm presenting it and I'm vulnerable. And I get to be honest, and I get to talk about things that really bother me. I feel like when I write plays, I don't talk about things that just get under my skin, you know what I mean? And if people know who I am, like they know I'm very loud, they know I'm constantly complaining about like movies, I'm constantly complaining about like race, I'm constantly complaining about like immigration laws, like stuff like that. And I feel like with stand-up, I still get to have fun with those things. I still get to like be myself, but still be like a character. I still get to be very, very vulnerable, but I still get to be in charge of everything. But I love the plays. I don't know. That's a hard one. I like writing plays. I like writing scripts because I get to write characters that are so much not like me, and I get to like play around with all these personalities of people I know and make something completely different. And it's a bit more difficult, I think, to write a play for me than it is to write a stand-up set. I spend more time on it. I agonize over a play a bit more. Like, I'm more likely to throw out a play and never come back to it. And always be thinking about it and always be like, man. But like a joke, I would come back to it. It's a little bit easier, I think. So, I don't know. It's a hard one.
That's a really good answer. You gave a great answer.
Good answer.
Absolutely.
By not answering it at all.
Well, even when I asked it, I was kind of like, I don't know if that's a fair question, but I think like...
No, it was a fair
maybe
question.
The better question is like, what do you take from each? And that's kind of how you answered it, which I think was a good way to answer. Yeah, that's cool.
It's kind of hilarious because every time I look over, it looks like you have like moose antlers because we didn't take the little person off the wall.
Oh, no.
So you were out of the room. I asked, I was like, should we erase that? And then I thought, no, it gives context to the time. We'll always remember.
But it's just hilarious because all I can see when I look at Anthony is like moose antler on this side and bye guys on the top of his head.
Yeah, that should be like your like logo.
Official.
Bye guys.
Bye guys. I like that. Yeah, bye guys.
I actually like that.
Bye guys.
I'm definitely using that at the end of like every part. Just bye guys. That's perfect.
That's hilarious.
That's cute. I like it.
I guess for context, our sweet little 12-year-old Emma drew that on the board last night at our launch party. Because she was so sad to leave the podcast table from her plan to do a podcast.
Which she's going to do.
Yeah, that she's going to do.
I'm super excited about that. Yeah, to sidetrack just for a second, because we never gave too much context, but we just officially launched the company yesterday, Feast Media, and
Yeah,
this is
me
our
too.
first podcast. We did mention it was the first podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
but-
Yeah, we did a lot at the beginning when it was like really
But there's
clunky.
a bigger deal here, right? Like
There's a-
there's a huge
Yeah, it was
deal.
pretty. I was very, very nervous
Congratulations.
all week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's amazing. No. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It feels good to be.
Do I get to be on her podcast too?
You can
Yeah,
totally.
Yes.
Okay.
She wants to like
Important.
use the green screen to like go places in the podcast.
Yeah,
like,
do interviews in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
and specifically
Like, in
Disney
an
World's the one she
atlas-
really
yeah,
mentioned
Disney
a lot.
World, Disney
And she
World.
did draw, I think, Mickey Mouse. So
Oh, that makes so much sense.
yeah,
Yeah. It's
That was
I
a
thought it
huge-
was moose antlers.
you
well,
did
no,
say
it's
that.
just the angle. Like I can't see the rest of the arm. I can
okay,
just see the
okay.
3 things coming
Oh,
out of
you're
your
looking
head.
at this.
Yeah.
That
like
makes
so I can
sense.
I know there's a thing there, but all I can see when I look at Anthony specifically is the moose antlers and bad guys and some balloons over his head.
Oh yeah, we still have the balloons.
We still have balloons.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But I guess interesting. So you're also a teacher,
Yeah, I teach. Yeah.
which is really interesting. So how do you bring this like creativity to students, or do you?
Right. Well, I think you have to, right? Like, I don't know, like, I'm a supply teacher. I'm only in there for, like, I don't know. Like, I would clearly be there a lot, and these kids would get used to me. And it's one of those things where it's like, why not try to have fun with it? Why not try to be an engaging person there? And I mean, I supply, like, I'm an English teacher. So it's like, that's like the perfect sort of subject to do it in. It's so flexible. You can do whatever you want. And of course it works, right? Like you could come in, like you could get a lesson plan the night before or the morning of, and it's like, I don't know, these kids come in, they don't want to be there. So why not tell them some jokes? Why not show them like a scene from a movie and talk about it? Why not like... Because they're doing that stuff at home anyway, right? Like they want to see these creative things in school.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like why not? I did this thing with a teacher at George Street. So what he wanted to do was he wanted to it's like a quick write. So basically the kids like start writing and then they don't stop. And what it was they had to do rants. And he was like, would you do a rant for the kids if they gave you a topic? So I was like, yes. So I think my topics were like people who say milk instead of milk, and they came up with the topics. And why there isn't a Madagascar 4.
Okay. Okay.
And I don't know, they like want to see it, and then when they saw me do it, they wanted to do it too. So like this one girl did a rap about like white boys with like the rectangular kind of haircut with the fade on the side, and how she hates it. Somebody did a rant about how to make like what she said, a bomb.com grilled cheese sandwich, and how people keep like fucking that up. And I was just like,
Cheese sandwich.
and
I love it.
they want a chance to like express themselves, right?
Yeah,
Like so
for sure.
like and the thing is like they have all that energy, so it's also very hard for me not to be like inspired by them. Like you'll come over and you'll be like, oh, what are you writing about? What's your passion project? And they'll be like, oh, I'm writing a story about mental illness in a small town, New Brunswick. Yeah, so it stars an actress, and she's working her way up, and you hear this big story that she probably found out, and she probably like learned from, because she has like social media, she has friends, and they're creative, right? Like they want to be, and they just want somebody else to be creative with them. So it's like, why not, right? Like you'd be kind of an asshole not to at that point. Like to just be like, oh, well, all right, like why not? Right?
Yeah. That's such a... Well, first of all, I want to say you probably are one of the... Like, you'd be such an awesome teacher. I feel like if I was a kid and I had you as a teacher, I would have loved that.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe because the other thing I was going to say, as you said a few times, I think like one of the best questions you can ask is why not? I think like if you're not doing something, fair, you're not doing it, but at least ask why not.
Why not?
And then if you can't answer that, then you probably don't have a good enough reason to not do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like just doing like little things. Like they find out you're a stand-up comedian. Like all the kids know I'm a stand-up comedian. So it's like they'll ask, "Oh, do a set or something." So, like, do one. Like,
Yeah.
And then
Why
like,
not?
keep them on track, right? Like make sure
Yeah.
they do their work. Some of them come up to me and they'll be like, "Oh, how do you make a living as like a writer?" And you'll be like, "Oh, I'll help you out. I'll show you competitions." I showed a bunch of my kids the Notable Acts playwriting competition that was coming up. I know there's a student of mine who I taught during my practicum. Her name is Alyssa Robinson. I believe she's putting on a play at Drama Fest this week.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And it was excellent. Like, I read it, and it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So I hope to see that this week. And she's just this insanely creative kid, right? Like, and all these kids they just want to do stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, you see how the education system is, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed too much, right?
No.
And it's so reliant on these kids having, like, a good teacher. And the only thing you really need to do is just support them. They do most of the work. They just need somebody to back them up.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
It's almost like giving them permission to be themselves, but then like also modeling it yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
If they say you do it, they see you do it, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it makes them so much more comfortable.
Yeah,
probably.
and adding structure to that is something they need. I even did like a critique class with my kids.
That's excellent.
I printed out a personal essay I wrote about this time I got like beat up in primary school, and I got my like Game Boy Color smashed, and it was I had like a Pokemon game in there. But it's a story of the first time I stood up to a bully. And I printed it off, and I gave them all copies, but I took out my name. And I asked them all to critique it, and I said, if you like something, you have to say why, and if you hate something, you have to say why, and you have to be constructive, you have to organize your points, and I'll give you all like 2 minutes just to like go off on it, but try to keep it constructive. And I mean, they had fun with it. I let them like go extreme, but then I was like, okay, but like construct it down, like taper it down. And because they didn't know it was me, they were so unafraid to just say whatever they wanted. And then I told them it was me, and they didn't care. I think one of them said, "Well, yeah, I know that." And
Yeah, we knew.
yeah. We hear you. Like, we know what you sound like. And I don't know. It was one of those things where it's like they, and they did it. They constructed it. They were able to critique, and it was fun. They had fun doing that. And yeah, if they could do it, anybody could do it, right? Like it's not even to like put them down. It's just like it's one of those things where it's like they have the energy, they have the resources, and they're much smarter than I was when I was a kid.
My gosh, this generation's just so inspiring.
Wicked
Like
smart kids.
Yeah.
And like I find like I wish I had known myself like at that age. Like I see like 11-year-olds who are just like full in themselves, and I'm like, where did you figure that out? Like, I feel like it took like my parents' generation until their like retirement age. It's taking our generation until we're in our early 20s. But like
100%.
like the kids and teens nowadays are just like, I don't know. It's so inspiring to watch, and they care so much about the world, and they care about their voices, and they care about the voices of other people that don't necessarily like that aren't them. It's just
I think like social
phenomenal.
media and stuff helps them be a lot more unafraid to be themselves, I guess is a way to put it. And they were doing this thing. It was like a niceness day. So these two kids, and I thought I was gonna have a talk to them about like, oh, don't be this and don't be that. And they did this thing. There's these two boys, and they went around the class, and what they would do is every time they said something or asked something, they would say cutie patootie right after.
Okay.
So they would like go up to their friend and they'd be like, hey, can I borrow that pencil, cutie patootie? And I'd be like, why are you guys doing that? And I was like, oh, well, it's niceness day, Mr. Bryan. Did you not know that? And like, they were just being funny, right? And like everyone was like, stop doing that, it's annoying. But like they also thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And like they didn't feel like they had to like, I don't know, they weren't being mean. They weren't trying to like stir anything up. They were just being themselves, and they were just having a good time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought it was funny too. So
Yeah.
go on, keep doing it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like they were kind of expressing themselves in some way, like trying
just wanna
something.
do it,
Yeah.
Somebody called me a cutie patootie once, and I thought they called me a potato.
No, it's not.
A cute potato.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a potato, thank you.
He got mad.
Are you from PEI? Like, no.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's like I would love to work with some of these kids, right? Like I also like do these things with them too, because like eventually they're gonna grow up. Eventually, like fingers crossed, if I'm like writing movies, writing plays, I would cast like any of them in a heartbeat, right? Like there's so many kids I could like think of right now off the top of my head that would be like, you would be perfect in something, and I can't wait for you, like when you figure out what you're doing and you go on a certain path in your life, that we could like work together and make something. We could write together. I could direct something. I could be in something of yours. Like, it'll be fun. It would be a lot of fun to see them do stuff, right? Like,
sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you're a teacher, but you're also a mentor. Like, you're not just teaching, which I think is something sometimes in the education system that's missing. Is like that like education is done really well, I think, when someone has a mentor that doesn't just deliver them material and walk away. Right. It's kind of saying like, I'm giving a part of me to your process to help you come to where I am, and then we can meet and create together. And
do something cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, and, I mean, you're doing this podcast with this girl, and that's gonna be great because you're giving her the space to do it. You're showing her all the equipment works, so all she needs to do is bring the energy, and she does, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and like you said, like they're gonna do all, like the work anyway. You just have to like give them the opportunity. Yeah. It's not like I think some people
do it.
Yeah, I think some people think like, oh well, if I take on this and try to, it's gonna be so much work. It's kind of like you just give people the ability or the chance,
and the opportunity and the space, and they'll appreciate that, right? They'll be like, I remember that time that person did that for me. They're not gonna just walk away with that. They like that. They want people to recognize them as like, not even like. And I think the thing is, like, a lot of people, when they interact with kids, they don't know what to say, right? They're like, especially teenagers, they'll be like, I'll treat them like an adult when it's necessary. I'll treat them like a child when it's necessary. But, like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, it's just about respecting them and respecting their space, right?
Sure,
like, acknowledging them that they are people and they have ideas. They have very complex ideas. They are going through very complex times, and they're very, and respecting that.
Respect is huge, I think.
Yeah, and giving them that space to express themselves and listen to them.
Just listen.
Goes a long way.
It's an easy job because, again, like, I don't know, you just listen to them. Like, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Should we do the speed round of random questions?
Yeah.
What's our time?
We have 10 minutes.
Okay.
Like,
I think that'd
basically
be
on
fun.
the nose. So we have 10 minutes. We probably should have come up with the questions before.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
I didn't. Your idea was a speed round. I have a couple. Like, if we did 4 questions each, 5 questions each.
Let me grab my phone. Yeah.
Just like random. Does that work for you, Anthony?
Yeah.
Then it's speed on us too. We got to randomly come up with questions quickly. Is that what you're saying? We got to come up with them on the spot. That'd be kind of fun.
Okay. We can try
gosh.
that.
Yeah,
We can try
I'm
that.
excited. All right, let's go.
Good thing Anthony's
let you
also good at improv.
I'm game. I'm down.
Well, we're gonna see which one of us isn't. It's probably gonna be me. Be like, my question will be like, "What is?"
What do you think?
Yeah.
What is? Okay, I'll start. So speed round. Dun, dun, dun.
Eventually, when we actually figure this out, we'll probably have like a timer. When we do this in post, I'll add a timer sound. So speed round.
Nice.
Dun, dun, dun.
Starting with Caitlin's question.
What is your favorite snack?
My favorite snack. Oh my god. I like these Snyder's like hot, like the pretzels, like they're very like hard pretzel snacks. They're like honey mustard. My partner hates when I eat them, so that also makes me like them a little bit more. Yeah, because they smell bad.
Fair.
Yeah.
I had all that time to think of a question. Favorite genre of music?
I would say like I like alternative like rock a lot, but I'm like dropping back into R&B again, and rap. I just downloaded the new Anderson .Paak album, so I'm like listening to like Future as well and like all these different rappers and stuff. So that's 3 different. Sorry about
That's fair. No, hey.
Yeah.
What is your favorite space to create in?
Oh, my favorite space to create in. I kind of like an empty room, and I guess there's like a lot of background to this sort of question. I like a big empty space to walk around in because I like to walk and pace. And when I was a kid, I used to make like movies in my head, but I had like a Tarzan toy that I would wiggle around, and it just sort of like gave my hand something to do while I would like think and like I would like talk out loud. I'd be like, oh, I look like I talk to myself, so I look like I was like talking to myself. Eventually, like I got rid of the toy. So what I do is I'll have like a pencil in my hand, and I'll just sort of like wiggle it between my fingers while I like think of lines, and I'll say the lines out loud. I'll like record myself, and then I'll write them out. And I try. It helps me have the characters sound like they're actually speaking. So like they have like little quirks to their voice and stuff. I'll add things in, and yeah, So I like a big empty room where people can't just like walk in and be like, "What are you doing?" And then I have to explain that to them every single time. Yeah. So I like
What are you
that.
doing?
What are you doing?
What is the artist that has most inspired you?
Oh wow, that's a great one.
Always the questions are like hard to answer. I'm like,
It's speed round.
yeah.
That's a good one. I don't know. Boy, that's a very, very tough one.
Or some of the artists.
Yeah, there's a big like sort of hodgepodge of them. I love Wes Anderson. I like how unafraid he is to be like weird. I love like filmmakers like Sofia Coppola. I like quiet, like serene stuff. I like Rian Johnson. I like how odd he is. Everybody like doesn't like The Last Jedi. I love The Last Jedi. I like Shane Black a lot. I like his like quippiness. I like his like 90s sort of sensibilities. There's this guy, I for the life of me I can't pronounce his name. It's like Yorgos Lanthimos. He did The Lobster and Dogtooth.
Oh yeah. Talk about taking risks, eh?
He's done some bonkers films. This
Yeah.
odd, like surreal film. And every time I see a movie, he just did The Favorite, which I didn't love, but I found out he didn't write it. So I was like, okay, all right. But like the directing and cinematography of The Favorite is all him. And I was just like, okay, so that's where the weird stuff comes in. So I love how just surreal he is. And I would love to make a movie like that, like The Lobster, like just a movie that's just so odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to see it.
When are you gonna make a movie?
When am I gonna make a movie? I wrote a script called Shoebox recently. I would love to get it shot and done up by the end of the year. That's ambitious. I also have
Can be done.
a tentative script, and it's a series of. I keep doing that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna destroy the equipment.
It's okay. They can handle it.
Rip
They've
this
got the
place
shock
apart.
mounts.
I wanted to make like a series of shorts, and it's like a bunch of friends who make like YouTube videos. So like it's like a community of YouTubers, and they do like makeup tutorials, and they do prank videos, but they're like they are pranking each other with like cursed objects. So like one of them has to review a video game that never ends. One of them is using like mascara that turns them into like an old person and stuff like that. And it's like just different vignettes.
Yeah.
And I'd love to do that with a couple of friends of mine. And I mean, you can film that on the cheap. So
Sure, yeah.
fingers crossed for this year. If not this year, early next year. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like it. I'm excited for that. Are we done?
No, you have 2 more questions.
Oh, we do 4 each.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna steal from. Is it James Lipton that does the Actors Studio? And I wanted to ask, what's your favorite word?
My favorite word?
Yeah. What do you love to say?
Oh, man.
It can be anything. It can be laughter. Favorite sound? Maybe that's what.
I don't know.
Speed round. Boo-ha.
I do the same. I say like a lot. I know that's a really bad one.
No.
But I start a lot of sentences, so I'll be like, so like and it just helps. I guess sort of taper off what nonsense I'm gonna say next. If it's like the most like harsh critique, or if it's the most like nonsensical rant about whatever. It just sort of helps. So like, as much as it's the worst word and people try to get you to stop saying it, it does show people that you're relaxed. And I think there's a lot of value in it. I do think there's I
cool,
like
that's
it.
cool.
Do it,
So
use
much
it,
value.
keep using it.
Well, and I mean, it's kind of a very current word, like with
Yeah.
Facebook. Like is everything.
Yeah.
Like is everything.
Wow.
Like is like.
Camera, yeah, we got somewhere with that, didn't we?
That was
Cool.
introspective.
I like that answer.
Yeah, no, there we go. See?
For my spinal speed round question.
Spinal?
My spinal.
Spinal.
This is Spinal Tap.
Yeah, good movie.
I want to know how you cut your sandwiches.
Oh, I cut my sandwiches.
Oh, you mean like the diagonal?
Yeah, diagonal, straight up and down. Do you make
Into
it into
four
4? Do you
quarters?
cut the
Oh
crust?
my gosh.
How do you cut your sandwiches?
Okay, I haven't had a sandwich in forever. I'm
That's
not gonna
actually, you know
lie.
what? I haven't really either.
I can't. I myself cut them into triangles. Like I cut them like diagonally.
Twice. So you cut it
Yeah.
twice. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
And
Color me surprised.
my interesting.
Interesting. I'm learning so much.
Yeah, my mom used to cut them into fours, like just like
Squares.
squares, yeah. And
Interesting.
I liked that, but apparently not enough to do it myself. But yeah.
Okay. Cool. Your last one, Joel.
It has no pressure to come up with a great question. Favorite project that you've created, and it can be anything. It doesn't have to be something. It could be
Right.
something you did with students. It could be like something that you've
Right.
done creatively that's like your favorite looking back.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mentioned them earlier. Like, I think I Love This City is my favorite. I adored that play. It's everything that I liked. Like, it is every influence that I like. They reference so many things. They reference like Cheers. They reference SpongeBob. They reference Twin Peaks. it's just this hodgepodge of references, right? And there's like game show references. I used to watch a lot of game shows with like my aunts and my grandma and like stuff like that. And it was so much fun to see it get like put up and to
Yeah.
hear people react to it. And there were people who were like, I don't know what I just saw, but I liked it. It was fun. It was just fun to like see it go out. I met my partner at the cast party. She was cast and they played like the director cast, and so there's a love story there as well.
Wow.
Oh.
And it was
Those are the
fun.
best.
Yeah, and I remember during the cast, like they were casting it, so they were doing auditions, and I didn't want to influence them at all, but I wanted to see, because I wanted to hear my script be read for like the first time.
Yeah.
So I'm like sitting there like in the back, and Esther, who directed it, Esther Sukup, they came in and they got like all the people who read the sides, and they asked them what they thought about it. And I just had to hear people talk about my script again without knowing that I was the one who wrote it. And it was nice. And they were like, oh, it's kind of like BoJack Horseman. There's like some
Which you
dark
would've
stuff. And I
loved.
was like, ah. And I was like,
That's
oh,
cool.
yes.
Yeah.
And then one of my friends, their partner, they came to see it, and he said that he wanted to write his own script after seeing that. And I was like,
That's cool.
and I don't know, like, I do think it needs work. I would love to put it back on again. I told the cast, like, I was writing more. Like, the whole point was it was an episodic play, so I have to work on more of that. They demand it, and that's kind of fun too. Like, I
Yeah.
have people who want to see more, people who worked on it who are like, please do more, and that's fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if it's like 2 or 3 people. So yeah,
Awesome.
I love this city.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
100%.
That's
Well, I hope
awesome.
you do. If you do put
Yeah.
it back on, I'd love to.
Yeah.
100%.
Check
Yeah,
one
out.
you know, we'll do something with it. Maybe film it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
That'd be
that'd be
cool.
fun.
Interactive theater experience.
Awesome.
We got to do something.
We
Take
gotta-
some kind of risk, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
something's
we're
gotta go.
trying to
Just
say that.
innovative.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about at time, so I just want like one more thing. I find like often as artists we don't really get these opportunities to celebrate ourselves and like our work. So I want to know what we should celebrate with you right now.
We should celebrate.
Yeah,
with
like
me.
what are you celebrating right now?
Ah, man. Okay.
Or soon.
Or soon, yeah.
Like what do I want?
Could be literally anything, but I just want to finish on that.
Celebrate. Okay.
Like- And we'll put a cool sound effect in later.
I don't know.
We did 2 different
we
sounds.
did.
It's a beautiful like resplendent fanfare. I don't know. I'm trying to change the Wilson's room as much as humanly possible, right? Like people come up to me sometimes and they're like, "Thanks for making it like a place I want to go to and whatever." And I'm like, I could still do more with it. Like this, I never want to get lazy with that room. I wanna put it to a state where like people love coming there. Like it's not like they feel like they have to anymore. They don't like. I would ask my friends to come to comedy shows, and they would be very honest. They would say no because I do not want to. And now some of them do.
Yeah.
Like they can't. If they can't make it, they can't. But it's not because they don't want to anymore.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that the Wilson's room is. I mean, there's still work to do. But I'm happy that Joe Butler handed it over to me. I'm happy that there's comedians signing up who want to be a part of it. I'm happy that
Yeah.
like comedians like Brian Otta and like Jim Duffy, Evan Steves, you, Mary Green, Maggie, St, Sabrina Hahn, and shit, like all these comedians who acknowledge that I put a lot of work into this, and they're not just treating it like it's like, oh, whatever, like they're like, you did something, and I like that. I like that. I felt recognized. Yeah. And I felt like I did a good thing. So
you did a good thing. It was nice.
No, thank you.
Yay, celebration.
Yeah. Celebration sound. I'll bring it in. Awesome. Can I just... well, I was just going to ask, how can people find you? Like, if people listening are like, I would love to see something he's created. I'd love to be a part of it. What's the best way to get in touch with
I'm kind of a pleb still. I haven't made like a fan page or anything, so I'm still on Facebook and Instagram. I advertise everything directly through there. Okay. So yeah, if you just want to see shows at the Wilson's Room first Thursday of every month, first Thursday of every month, you could message me on Facebook. If you want a spot, if you want a spot first Thursday of every month, I'll give you 5 minutes, no questions asked. If you just shoot me a message. But yeah, so that's Anthony Bryan on Facebook.
Cool.
Amazing.
That's perfect.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been awesome. Yeah.
Pilot. No, thank you.
Yes, first episode of the first time we're doing this in our space that was just launched yesterday.
Awesome.
So yeah.
No, I appreciate this a lot.
There's still leftover candy and beer.
We'll get into that.
That's good. No,
let's go do that now.
Too. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye guys.